It's just, okay, one more person. So welcome to the webinar on talents and strengths. And I guess I'm biased, but everything in my 40 plus years in adult learning and professional development suggests to me that people have a lot more talent than they even realise themselves. In fact, I've never met a person who didn't have more talents, strengths, potential to give, both in their work and in their community and their personal lives as well. I trained as a Gallup strengths coach, and I'll be referring to that particular instrument, but there are other instruments as well that are really useful for helping people identify talents and strengths. But you're not limited just to using an instrument. I'm going to give you lots of tips today about how you can actually recognize your talents and strengths. So I'm going to be talking, first of all, about what are talents and strengths and making those distinctions, how to recognize your talents and strengths, whether or not you choose to invest in using an instrument. And later on, I'll get some input from you about whether you've used any of these assessments to actually identify your talents and strengths. And I'll also talk about, well, how do you develop your strengths? And of course, as I'm not just looking at you and your talents and strengths, the objective of this is really so you can help the people you mentor identify their talents and strengths and use them. So I shall be looking for your input throughout the webinar. And I know some of you will be experienced in this area and will want to, and will have valuable input to share. For now, I'm going to launch a poll, and we'll just take the pulse of where you are in terms of your current understanding of talents and strengths. So the questions there are you skilled already in strengths development and using it with your mentees and or your staff? Or, and this is one choice, multiple choice, but just choose one, familiar with strengths development, but not experienced in its use. The third option there, I've heard of it, but I'm not quite sure what's involved, or unfamiliar with the concept. So this is totally anonymous, and I'll share the results with you in just a moment. Okay, so just looking at what we've got here. Just give it a minute or two, not a minute or two, a few more seconds for you to think about this and respond. And then I will share the results with you. Okay. I'm thinking that probably everyone who wanted to reply has done so by now. So just 5 seconds and I'll close it. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let me share the results with you. Okay, so we have got on the line some people who are skilled in this area. So to you, I'd love to hear your comments. If you can share your experiences as we go through, and I know the other participants will value that as well. I'd say it's kind of equally split then between people who are familiar with strengths development, but not so experienced, and people who have heard of it, but not involved. And then we've got a couple who are unfamiliar with the concept. So I'm hoping no matter where you're at, this webinar will have something for you, and also the colleagues on the line will have plenty to share with you. So let's keep moving through. Let me put that poll away. But first, I really want to talk to you about, well, why would you want to develop strengths and look at your talents, both for yourself and for your mentee? So here are some of the ideas that I came up with based on, as I said, I was trained as a Gallup strengths coach, and also from my own experience of working with talents and strengths over quite a few years in organisations, both in the context of career development and mentoring, and also in team building and team development. And what Gallup's research has said is that people are more engaged when they are also involved in developing their own talents and strengths. So engaged staff look forward to coming to work. They're more positive about their workplace as well. What it means for the organisation and for the individual is that people are developing their potential and their productivity. It empowers teamwork. I did a lot of work with intact teams where people looked at their own talents and strengths, shared those with team members, so the team had a good picture of what their talents and strengths were, and so they could more effectively draw on the strengths of the team. And also, you know, strengths has its flip side. We have strengths, we also have weaknesses, and some of the opportunities there are for partnering with people that have strengths where we're not so strong, so the team can function better and individuals can get more out of their work. Now, what we also find is when you know where your talents are, you can choose to develop those talents and strengths. You tend to learn more quickly, more easily, and your work is more, and the learning is more enjoyable. This means, and this links back to productivity, you get more done without working any harder. You're less susceptible to stress, and I think that's something we need to focus on a lot these days. We've been you know, under a lot of stress, in particular these last 2.5 years now, and so focusing on positive things, focusing on developing ourselves, focusing on our potential, actually builds our resilience and makes us less susceptible. Excuse me. So focusing on the positive, we're more creative, more innovative. And when we are using our talents and strengths, we are in a position to contribute the most to our work, but also in our own lives and our own communities. There's more we've got to actually contribute. Now, I want to make the point that pretty much everyone, most people can work hard, learn skills and practice and contribute to achieve an acceptable standard. Now, if they can't, you really need to look at your hiring, your recruitment and hiring processes, because, you know, if people can't come up to scratch, either the role description is inadequate or your recruitment and selection is a little bit under par. And now, if those things are fine, then the people you're hiring ought to have the capability, the ability to work hard, to bring their skill level up to what you required. However, what we know from all the research that has been done is that we're not just looking at reaching the minimum standard, we're looking at excellence. And excellence in any field is more likely to be achieved by those who have and develop their natural talent for it. So I'll say more about this, but for the moment, we recognize, and you have the potential, no matter if you've got a task that is part of your job, you can achieve the basic standard required. But the areas that you will excel are more likely to be the ones where you've got that natural inborn talent. So let's start. I'm interested in your comments, your observations, particularly those who are totally new to this field. If you've got a question, please ask. And also those who are familiar or very experienced. If you want to share some of your experience, type in the chat box. That'd be really good right now. So let's have a look then at what are talents and strengths. So talents usually mean something, and I've mentioned this a couple of times, you may have picked up my language here, it's something that comes naturally to you. You have a natural predisposition. It's part of your genetic makeup, if you like. It's part of your personality. You're going to be attracted to certain things. It's your talents are things that you really enjoy doing. In fact, you enjoy it so much you tend to do it frequently if you have the opportunity, and therefore, practice means you become good at it. So talents means the skills, the abilities that seem to come more easily to you and naturally. It is that natural predisposition. And some of us have predisposition or things come easily in one area, and some are better in a different area. It is part of that innate personality. And a natural part of you. I'm really emphasizing that. It's just part of who you are. It came with you into this world, and your talents are there for life, even the ones that are not developed or are developed. Okay, Kerry is saying she's interested in the idea of talents and the link to deep individual motivations. Yes, I think there are some clear links between your talents and your motivations. It's the things you're naturally good at and you're going to be attracted to. You enjoy doing these things. So you're motivated to learn and motivated to do them. Okay, let's continue. So there are 4 kind of categories, if you like, and as I go through these, you might identify more with one than another, or 1 or 2 than another. So one of the categories is you have a tendency, your style, if you like, your personality is that you are a bit of a thinker. You think about information and situations. You mentally navigate your world. You have a focus on the future or the past. So you might have an interest in history, for example, or you might be a bit of a futurist, reading those futurist predictions. Maybe you follow a couple of futurists. My friend Guilherme Pereira is a renowned futurist and delivers really great information on the future of work and teams and so forth. So maybe that's an interest of yours. Kind of giving away my predominant style here too. I'm a bit of a thinker. I love history and I look at the future. And I tend to think, some people would say, overthink some things. So you analyze data and situations. You love to learn, reflect, and draw the lessons from events. You consume and absorb information, collect facts and interesting ideas. Now, not all of these may apply to everyone who's got this kind of thinking predisposition. You're one who seeks what you need to make better decisions. So you'll do the research, you'll look at the sources, you'll look at your options, you'll tend to analyze things before you come to a decision. So that's one of the 4 groups or categories of talents. Okay, maybe you are less of a thinker and more of a doer. Maybe you're this energetic type who just likes to make things happen. You're a get it done type of person. You are disciplined and focused. Once you decide on something, you're just working to get that done. You're prepared to take responsibility. You jump in to fix things. You're driven by a purpose. You're good at organizing others because you want to get the job done. So project manager or team leader, or if you're not in that kind of role, you've certainly got the potential there because of you just want to get things done. You like to work out the steps. So we're going from here to here, and here are the steps along the way, because that helps you make it happen. You pursue goals. Okay, so the get it done type person. That's the second category. category. The third one is a bit of an influencer here, not necessarily in the social media context that we often hear this, but more of a personal context. You are a take charge type. You are prepared to jump in and lead because you motivate. You have the ability to motivate and inspire people. Excuse me. You thrive on competition often, usually a good communicator. You're quite self-confident and persuasive, especially if you've developed these talents into strengths. You're always looking for improvement. You want to make a contribution in the world, in the workplace, in your community, in life itself. Okay, so that's the influence type. And finally, we've got the people person, someone who is sometimes described as human glue, the person in the group who makes sure that others are welcomed, that others are included, that everyone's okay. So the people person. They find it easy to empathize with others. You can see their point of view. You can put yourself in their shoes. You are inclusive. As I said, you make people feel welcomed. If you're at a networking event or a party and you see the person walking by themselves, you're the person who's likely to walk up to them and almost play host, even if it's not your function, to lead them in, to introduce them, to find them a beverage or something like that. This kind of person likes to build and maintain relationships, so they are flexible, able to tailor their approach to that person. You know, you don't sort of overwhelm people who might be a bit introverted. Instead, you'll find the way to draw out the introvert and help get them talking. Sorry, my cat is being very naughty. He's decided to chew some books now. So this is the people person, and they just love to help people develop. These are the ones who are going to be the informal mentors, the peer mentors, the one in the team who'll give their time to help the other person, to show them the ropes. Often they're optimists who see the bright side of situations. So there are the 4 categories. Now, Gallup actually has, through their analysis and their research, they've come up with 34 talent, what they call talent themes. They're what I've listed down the bottom there. And they've organized them into these 4 categories. They've given them different names. So executing is the get it done type of person. So their talents. Now, talents might be spread over the 34 different talent groups, but the get it done type of person tends to have most of their talents falling under this category of executing. They're the ones who want to get things happening. The influencer, these are the people with the energy to move people. And again, they've got most, not all, but most of their talents falling into that influencing category. And you can see the names down the bottom. If you're familiar with the Gallup Strengths Assessment, then these talents will be familiar to you. Don't worry if you're not. We're going to look at other ways to identify talents, and I'm just giving you an overview at the moment. Our human glue, the people who love to build relationships, build and maintain them, their dominant talents, if you like, are going to fall under that category. And then we've got those who navigate their world mentally, the thinkers, the analyzers, a bit strategic often, will have most of their talents in that category. So perhaps you can identify, you might like to share your top couple of, or your top, what do you think your dominant area might be? Or if you've used the instrument, you might share what your major themes were. Okay. Okay, Linny, I've seen your direct message. Would you like to email me after the webinar and I'll respond more to your question there? Okay, thank you. All right, so just checking if there are any more. Okay, Laurie, you're thinking type. Do you mean, Laurie, do you mean like personality type like Myers-Briggs or something like that? Because I actually see, okay, I actually see some connections here. I believe that that the Gallup Strengths Assessment does tap into personality, as does, say, Myers-Briggs Type Indicator and other personality instruments you might use. And certainly you can use those personality, all sorts of personality instruments that are reliable and valid. You will be able to look at those and use those as a basis for your mentoring conversation and a basis for perhaps drawing out people's talents and strengths. Okay. Okay, so Rachel, I'm guessing you've actually done the Gallup Strengths Finder because those themes that you've posted there. Yeah, okay, so Rachel's confirming that. So Rachel is quoting talent themes that are used in the Gallup Strengths Finder. And of course, I'll tell you a bit more about that in just a moment. Okay, but I do want to go on to how to recognise. So I'll talk about the Gallup Strengths Finder, but I want to share with you some other ways that you can recognise your talent. Perhaps I should have put up a poll on that one. If you have done the Gallup Strengths Finder, I have got a poll coming up later, but if you've done the Gallup, or actually it's now called the Clifton Strengths Assessment, you might let me know in the message. If you've done some other sort, that'd be good to let me know too. What's wrong with my slide? So let's move on how to recognise talents. Now, I put together this this matrix because, as I said, I never met a person who didn't have more potential, more to give, whether it's at work, in the community, or in their life generally. And so it suggested to me that we really need to start looking for these hidden talents. And this is what I mean. You know, some of your talents are going to be clear to you. Perhaps as I was talking before, you recognize some of your own talents and strengths. If you stop, but if you do stop and think about it, you're going to be able to think, yeah, I can see that this might be an area of talent or strength for me. Some of your talents will be less obvious to you, but other people can actually see those in you. Have you ever said to someone, oh, geez, you're really good at X, Y, Z? And they went, really? I thought anyone could do that. You know, it's just natural. And they don't realize that what comes naturally to them, you can see it in them, but they don't see it as anything special. And this is something I really would hope that you can work with your mentees. The things that they don't even recognize as anything special, but you, because you come at it from a talent and strength viewpoint, you can kind of help them nurture that and really build on it. So what you can see in this diagram, I've drawn it up as a matrix, the things that are going to be evident to other people, but maybe hidden from you. The things that are hidden from others and hidden from you, the things that are evident to you and hidden from others, and then the ones that are out in the open. So let's go through this. So the things that are evident to others but not to you are unrecognized talents. Okay, the things they see that you maybe don't see. Then we've got the things that are hidden from others and hidden from you. So no one knows about these. These are undiscovered. And this is a particular area you can focus on either with an instrument or with some of the techniques I'll share with you shortly, because we need to bring those out. Then there's what I call camouflage talents. It's like Camouflage, like, spots on leopards help them hide in the trees. Stripes on zebras do the same thing. They sort of camouflage. Lizards, sometimes you can't see the lizard because it's so well camouflaged. It just blends into the background. And sometimes that happens with skills that you have, talents and strengths that you may know you have, but they're not evident to people. They're just part of your operating protocols. It's just what you do. And it kind of is just kind of hidden in plain sight sometimes. Now, what we need to do is move our talents from any of those three areas into this fourth area, because identified talents are potential strengths. So we want to bring them out into that open part. I drew on, some of you will be familiar with the Johari window of communication. So that was my inspiration for this matrix. Get it out into the open and it expands your potential strength. So our first step is really to recognize our own talents and strengths and those of other people. So I've mentioned it several times before, the Clifton Strengths Assessment put out by the Gallup organisation. And you can see I just drew that from their website. It's a screenshot from their website. What is that? 27 million people using the Clifton Strengths to thrive at work and everywhere else. And they make the point, you are unique, you are powerful, be confident with who you are. Now, there is a cost to this, obviously. This is a much researched, validated, reliable instrument. And you can shop, you can go purchase the instrument, do the questionnaire online and get a really substantial report about your strengths, your talents, and the areas you can focus on developing, and those areas that where maybe you don't have a lot of talent, and therefore if you're called upon to use skills that might fall into that category, either you've got to find ways to use the strengths you have to do those tasks, or you might need to accept that you're going to be at this level, the standard level. You can achieve that with hard work, or you may need to partner with others in a team to produce the outcomes you want. So that's the Clifton Strengths Finder. You can Google it, can find, or just remember gallup.com and you'll find it there if you're interested. There are other strengths assessments. I'm just not familiar with them. So this is the one I trained in and know a bit more about. But you can go look. My one proviso is if you're using an instrument, check the reliability and the validity of that instrument. Remembering anything you find online, if it's free, you are the product. So, and you'd have to question how reliable a free thing would be. So you pay what you get, what you pay for, basically. The other way to approach this is there's a whole series of books. I like this one, Now Discover Your Strengths, put out some time ago by the designer, the inventor, if you like, of the Clifton Strengths Assessment, which was Donald O. Clifton, now no longer with us, and Marcus Buckingham. So they both wrote this book, which gives you a lot of background, a lot of detail, and it gives you a code which you can use on the Gallup website to access the instrument and get your, do the questionnaire and get your report there. Okay. So now I want to go through some of the ways that you can recognize talents and strengths without an instrument. And so here they are. The first one is just a reminder that talents are part of our natural personality. And, it's a bit like a magnet that pulls us to develop these raw ingredients that come as a built-in part of the package of the human that we are. And I use the compass here because it's like using a compass, the magnet points us in a particular direction, and you might recognize this in yourself. One of the ways you can recognize talents and perhaps even strengths is by the fact you have a calling. You know, maybe you've got a calling to a particular vocation. Most of us here are involved in mentoring, and there's something in our lives, our makeup, that's kind of drawn us into that human development kind of environment. The calling is really something within you that attracts you to certain things. You have a strong interest in this area. You maybe even have a desire, a yearning to do a particular kind of work, or there's something there that calls you. Another way is, and you might recognize in yourself, you actually can, when you're working with these particular areas that you're attracted to, you learn quickly. You may have a bit of a knack for it. You pick it up quickly and easily. You really enjoy learning. You're very interested and you're excited as you see yourself developing those skills. Did I miss one? The next one is there is something instinctive. So how do you recognize talents and skills in yourself? Well, maybe there's some sort of instinctiveness about it. You just know you're a bit more artistic, or you just know you've got a flair, you're a bit of a people person. I chose the picture of the kitten here because I've got 2 cats, and you've probably heard or seen them causing mayhem today. My cats have never been outside. In Australia, cats hunt, and they're a real danger, and they've contributed to the destruction of various species. And, you know, we have cats as pets. Some of us have cats as pets because we love them, but my cats have never been outside, and they never will be outside because of the destruction they reap. And yet, inborn in every cat is that hunting instinct. The fact they've never been outside and to hunt makes no difference whatsoever. My cats sit inside and look longingly. They get into the hunting position when they see birds. I've got a screened-in back deck. The cats can see out, but the birds cannot see in. And there's a water bath for the birds there that attracts them down. So I often have birds in the backyard. The cats see them and their instincts kick in to hunt, even though they have no experience and no opportunity. They already have the instinct and some rudimentary skills. If they were let out, they would hone those skills and they would kill. I've no doubt about that. It's inborn to every cat. And it's similar with human beings. There are some things inborn with you that even without the experience and the training, that are already there in at least a rudimentary form. And if you had the opportunity to start to develop those, you would hone those skills. So it's a natural response in your environment. You already have some level of unconscious competence in this area without even thinking about it. I'm interested in your comments on this as I go through, and please feel free, if you've got a question or comment, to share that. Another way you will recognize your talents and your strength is they energize you. Your face lights up. Now, when you're mentoring, this is a great clue for you to look for. When your mentee is talking about one area of their job, and maybe they're a bit mundane. When they talk about another area and their face lights up, their body language comes to life. You can hear the enthusiasm in their voice. You can see the light in their face and their body. You can feel that energy that they have for this particular area. That's going to be a strong clue to you, and one that's worth following up in investigating their talents and their strengths. When we use our dominant talents and strengths, we feel strong, we feel energized, we feel motivated, and we feel productive, and the results give us a lot of satisfaction. So in summary, as mentors, we want to be looking for these clues. Remembering it's part of natural personality. It might be hidden from the mentee because they kind of take it a bit for granted, but you as an objective person, you get out your magnifying glass, you're looking for these clues. And you're able in your conversations to get a feel for their natural personality from what they do and what they say. Are they exhibiting some sort of calling or attraction, or can you draw that out in your conversations? Maybe they have a knack, they learn quickly and easily in some areas. Is there some sort of instinctive know-how, like the cat and the hunting? Or do you get that face lighting up, that obvious energy and satisfaction? Ask them about what areas of their work give them most satisfaction, and don't restrict yourself just to their paid work. Do they volunteer in the community doing something? Do they have hobbies, sports, non-work activities that they do that give them that energy and that satisfaction? And even if that's not something they will develop into their career life, it's certainly something you want to encourage them to use, because we know that's going to be part of their life balance, part of their energizing, part of their anti-stress resilience mechanisms, if you like. So I've just got a list of questions here. If you're doing this for yourself, take a screenshot now and use this in your journaling. A reflective journal can be a really good way for individuals to really hone in on your strengths and your talents with these sorts of questions. If you're working with a mentee, you can add these to your repertoire of questions in your mentoring conversations. And remember, magnifying glass, we're looking for clues. We're listening with our ears and also with our eyes for that lighting up, that energizing. And we are searching and helping the mentee to identify their talents so that they can build them into strengths, so that they can become more confident in what they do at work. So they've got more opportunities to develop, and they've got more of their potential to actually contribute in the workplace, in the community, and in life. So hopefully you've got, I'm not going to go through these screenshot just before I change the slide. Hope you've got that. I'm going to do another poll here now. What I want is my second poll here. Now, there's just one question, but you can choose more than one response. So I'll give you a little bit longer to respond to this, because there's, what have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 options, and you can choose more than one option. So just wanting to check in. Have you used an instrument that assessed your talents and strengths? I should broaden this maybe and say a personality type assessment would also give you, and there's also things like DISC, which is usually used in a team context, that will help you identify some of your strengths as well. Have you had conversations Has someone sort of said to you, let's talk about what you're really good at here, or let's talk about the areas to develop. Let's look at your strengths and build on those. Have you sort of sat down and really thought about your talents and strengths? I wonder how many of you have actually used journaling. Some people love it, some people hate it, but I'd recommend you give it a go, even if it's just those questions that are up on the previous slide. Or have you never really thought about talents and strengths? I know some of you said this was a bit of a new area to you. You know, we can't know everything. Maybe this is the first time you've really come across this kind of concept. Okay, let's give it 5 more seconds, and then we can look. Okay, I've got to move on because time's getting away. Let me just end this now, and I'll share the results with you. Okay, you can see results up on screen now. Okay, so quite a lot of you, nearly 60%, 59% have used some sort of instrument. If it was a while back, you know, what tends to happen is we do these things, we might attend a course, or maybe we've got a coach or a mentor working with us, and then we put it in our drawer, or we put it somewhere in a folder and we don't look at it again. Share if that's you, if you want to, but I recommend, if you've done something like this, go back to it. It's not a one-off. We are continually developing throughout our lives. And if you go back to these things, you'll find more. Every time you go back and look, you'll find a reinforcement of things you want to continue doing, and you'll find new things that you can do or do more of to develop yourself. If nothing else, it'll give you recognition and acknowledgement of the things you're doing and using, which is going to be a good thing. So quite a few of you, nearly half of you, have had some conversations, so that's great. Reflect on those conversations. Who was it that had that conversation with you? What did they do? What did they do well? What did you do? What did you do well? What were the outcomes? How did you use that? Or again, was it a bit of a one-off? Go back and revisit that and think about how you can use that information. Okay, a lot of you, probably we've got a lot of reflective learners here in this group. We're not a random group. So most of the majority have kind of thought about it. A few of you, good few of you, are actually using journaling. And as I said, recommendation, give it a go. And not too many never really thought about it. Well, you're here now, so you're obviously thinking about it now. So let's pop that away and let's move on, because I want to finish up with our third area, which is, well, how do you develop strengths? Well, my interpretation of this is, we all have talent. It's talents inborn with us, but they'll lie dormant there. They'll remain hidden unless we do something with them, unless we have an opportunity to develop them. Now, we will naturally, because we have kind of calling, we will look for opportunities. There's an artist who was known as Grandma Moses. She didn't get to paint until she was a grandma, hence the name. But even as a young child, she grew up in almost poverty on a farm. She would take a stick and dirt and water and create drawings and paintings with mud, basically, because she had that inborn talent. She didn't get the opportunity until much, much later in her life to get her hands on drawing material, proper drawing materials and paints. And when she did, oh my goodness, look up Grandma Moses. But it's not just about opportunity, it's also about investment. We have to put time and energy and sometimes money into developing our talents into skills. We have that natural intrinsic ability, but we need to build on top of that for it to become indeed a strength, like muscles. You know, we've all got muscles, but how strong they are depends on how much time and energy and effort we put into building those muscles. So what allows us to build talent into strength? Well, it's the addition of knowledge, skills, and experience. Let me expand on that a little bit. So knowledge is like information that you can access. You gain that knowledge and you understand it and you can recall it when you need. So you kind of, and luckily learning comes more easily to you because you're interested in your area of talents. So you internalize that knowledge and you can draw on it. It's a bit like a recipe that you learn the recipe. I mean, how many of you learned a particular recipe from a book or whatever, or from your grandma or a parent or a friend? But now, because you love that particular recipe, you don't even look at the printed recipe anymore. It's there in your brain. You don't worry about measuring out every little, to a great degree. You know what the ingredients are and you can put it together and get a good result. Now, you've internalized that information. So you have the knowledge. Skill builds on that knowledge. It actually involves the ability, the technique, the know-how, because a recipe is all well and good, but you still need to acquire the skill to actually combine. So you know that you rub the butter through the flour with the sugar. You don't just chuck it in and stir it up. There's an ability there, there's a technique, and there's some know-how that perhaps a more experienced person will share with you. And then as you gain that, you develop experience. And, writers hone their skills by writing. And the same applies to painters and artists and bakers and plumbers and physicians and teachers and engineers. You can have the knowledge, you can even have the skill, but really it becomes a strength when you add your own experience to all of that and you hone the knowledge and skills. You become better and better and better with practice. And if this is an area of talent, you've got some intuition, some instinctive ability there, there'll be things you don't even think about anymore. You just do them. So I like this saying, if all you have is a hammer, it's tempting to treat everything as a nail. And I share this saying with you because most of us have developed and rely on just a few of our strengths, or perhaps one area of strengths. And so we apply that in all situations, when we may have other talents that we could develop into strengths as well. And that's what I'm on about here. We really want to see, well, what else is in the toolkit for ourselves and for the people we mentor. Help them identify their talents and their strengths and see the tools that are in their toolkit and choose the appropriate ones that are going to help them in their careers and help them advance their careers. And when you do, it's so important, especially now we're in a dynamic, growing, changing world. We've got to be fast on our feet. And so the more tools we have that we can pull out from our toolkit, the more resilient we are going to be. And I just think talents and strengths are so integral to career conversations and mentoring. The more you can learn about them, the more you can help your mentees, the more joyful and rewarding your mentoring is going to be. And that's why I put together in my latest book, the Mentors Toolkit for Career Conversation. It's more than a book. In that book, you will find 45 activities to help you with career conversations that you can you can download them and print them, give them to your mentee. Not, you don't have to give them all, you pick out the appropriate ones, obviously. Get them to do them and then bring them back and have conversations around them. You can use them yourself, obviously, for your own career development if you want to, but there's 45 of them in this toolkit. Not only that, but when you buy the book, you also get access to an online career planning course. I think it's got 9 modules, video modules. There are worksheets with those as well. You can give access to your mentee. It's a password protected web page. You can access it and watch the videos if you want to, and you can have your mentee access those videos, and then you can get together, or you could even watch them together if you wanted to do that. So it's more than a book, it's a whole career development toolkit, which is why I called it that. I'll send you some more information about that. So we've covered our content just within the time. We talked about what are talents and strengths. So it's this natural born potential that can be developed. Talked about how to recognize talents, the clues to look for, and the 4 categories. Remember, there's the thinkers, the doers, the influencers, and the people who build relationships. So describe those talents and strengths, and you can start to look for those in yourself and other people, or you can use an instrument if that works for you. And then I've briefly spoken about how to develop strengths. The first part of that is to recognize the talents. And in my view, many of us and our mentees have hidden talents that we want to draw out, because we're then developing their potential, more to give in their work, their community, and their life. So I'm going to ask you in just a moment, what are your key takeaways? So jot those down for yourself if you'd like to. Share them in the chat box. I'm also interested in what are you going to do with this? I hope you found it useful. But what are you going to do with it? Just a quick reminder, our next webinar is only a couple of weeks ago. Well, I'm playing catch up with this webinar today. If you are live, you will get invitations to each webinar. If you're watching the recording, please look for the subscription button to the newsletter. You'll get a free ebook there, and you'll also get invitations to future webinars. The next 4, we dive deep into each of those 4 questions that are the foundation of the mentoring conversation. And we will do that in the context of mentoring conversations that are aimed at career development. So I'll be giving you lots of specific questions that you might want to use, and talk about how are the activities that are involved in those as well. So you can get this book in most countries of the world. I'll include the links for you in the email that comes to you later on today. So I'm ready to take your questions. I'd also love to see your key takeaways and actions. I'm going to just stop the recording now and take questions. So if you're watching the recording, thanks. Hope to see you on a live webinar sometime soon. If you're with me live, stick around for questions.